Right now, there is sound around you. Maybe it's music. Maybe it's traffic. Maybe it's just the hum of a fridge you stopped hearing years ago. But here's a question you've probably never asked. When was the last time you heard nothing at all? Think about it. You wake up and check your phone. You shower with a podcast playing. You commute with headphones in. You work with background noise. You eat with a screen on. You fall asleep to a fan, a video, a playlist. From the moment you open your eyes to the moment you close them, you are wrapped in sound. And if that sound ever stops, if you're ever left in true silence, something strange happens inside you. You get uncomfortable, restless, almost itchy. You reach for your phone without even deciding to. You probably think that's just a habit, a modern quirk. But the real answer is far stranger. Your discomfort with silence isn't a bad habit. It's a signal. And what it's hiding from you might be the most important thing about your own mind. Let's start with an experiment that sounds like a joke, but isn't. In 2014, a psychologist named Timothy Wilson at the University of Virginia ran a study that became famous almost overnight. The setup was simple. Participants were asked to sit alone in a plain room for about 15 minutes. No phone, no book, no music, nothing but their own thoughts. That's it. Just sit there and think. Most people hated it. They reported that it was difficult, unpleasant, hard to concentrate. But Wilson pushed the experiment one step further. He gave participants a button. If they pressed it, they would receive a mild but genuinely painful electric shock. Before the experiment, every one of them had said they would pay money to avoid that shock. Then they were left alone with silence. 67% of the men shocked themselves. 25% of the women did too. One man pressed the button 190 times. Let that sink in. Given the choice between 15 minutes of quiet and literal physical pain, most people chose the pain. They chose it voluntarily, repeatedly. Why would anyone do that? What is so unbearable about nothing? Here's the first layer of the answer. Silence is not nothing. When the outside world goes quiet, your brain does not go quiet with it. It does the opposite. It gets louder. Neuroscientists have mapped what happens in your brain when you stop doing tasks and stop receiving stimulation. A researcher named Marcus Reichel discovered that when you're at rest, a specific web of brain regions lights up. He called it the default mode network. It's the machinery of daydreaming, memory, self-reflection. It's the part of you that replays that awkward thing you said in 2019. The part that wonders if you're falling behind. The part that thinks about death at 2 in the morning. When you fill your ears with podcasts and playlists, that network gets suppressed. The noise keeps it quiet. But the moment external sound disappears, the default mode network switches on like a floodlight. And suddenly you're alone in a room with the one voice you can never mute. Your own. So when you say you can't stand silence, be precise. It isn't the silence you can't stand. It's what the silence lets through. Now go back further, much further, because your unease in quiet places isn't just psychological, it's ancient. For millions of years, your ancestors lived on landscapes that were never silent. Wind in the grass, insects, birds, the distant sounds of other animals moving through the world. That constant hum of life was information. It meant the environment was operating normally. Predators reveal themselves not by making noise, but by creating an absence of it. When a leopard moves through the brush, the birds stop singing. The insects go still. The soundscape drops out. To an ancient human, sudden total silence was one of the most dangerous sounds in the world. It meant something was hunting. The humans who felt a spike of alertness when the world went quiet, who sat up, scanned the tree line, and got ready to run, survived. The relaxed ones didn't. You are descended from the nervous ones. Every single one of your ancestors, without exception, was someone who paid attention when things got too quiet. So a piece of your discomfort in silence is 2 million years old. Your nervous system still reads deep quiet as a possible ambush. The prickle you feel in a dead silent room at night? That's not weakness. That's an alarm system that never got the memo that the leopards are gone. But here's where the story takes a turn. Because silence isn't just something your brain fears. It's something your brain needs. desperately. In 2013, a biologist named Imke Kersta at Duke University was studying the effects of sound on the brains of mice. She played them different kinds of audio, music, white noise, recordings of mouse pups, and as a control condition, a baseline she expected to do nothing, she gave some mice 2 hours of pure silence each day. The silence wasn't supposed to matter, it was the boring condition. But when Kirsty examined the brains, the silent group stood out. The mice exposed to daily silence had grown new neurons in the hippocampus, the region tied to memory and learning. Not the music group, not the white noise group, the silence group. The nothing condition turned out to be the most powerful one in the study. And it's not just mice. In 2006, a physician named Luciano Bernardi was studying how music affects the human body. He played people tracks of varying tempos and measured their heart rate, blood pressure, and breathing. Between the songs, he inserted 2-minute pauses of silence. The pauses were just there for contrast. They weren't the point of the study at all. Then Bernardi looked at the data and found something he wasn't looking for. The deepest relaxation didn't happen during the slow, soothing music. It happened during the silent pauses. 2 minutes of nothing lowered heart rate and blood pressure more effectively than the calmest music he could play. Silence, sandwiched between sounds, relaxed the body more than sound designed to relax it. So hold these two facts in your head at the same time. Your body treats silence as medicine, and your mind treats silence as a threat. How can both be true? Because they're reacting to different things. Your body relaxes in silence because processing sound is work. Every sound you hear, even ones you ignore, gets analyzed by your brain. Is it speech? Is it a threat? Where is it coming from? Your auditory system never clocks out. It runs all night, which is why a strange noise can wake you from deep sleep. Constant background noise means constant background labor. When silence arrives, that labor stops, and your whole system exhales. But your mind panics in silence for the reasons you've already seen: the ancient ambush alarm, and the default mode network flooding you with every thought you've been outrunning. And that word matters. Outrunning. Because here's the uncomfortable part of this story. The part about you. Look at your own life honestly. The podcast during your commute, the video while you eat, the playlist while you work, the show you fall asleep to. You call it multitasking. You call it staying informed. You call it background noise. But ask yourself a harder question. What would you hear if it all stopped? For most people, the honest answer is this. You'd hear the things you haven't dealt with. The decision you keep postponing. The relationship you know isn't working. The dream you quietly gave up on. The question of whether you actually like the life you've built. These thoughts don't disappear when you drown them out. They wait. The default mode network doesn't forget. It just gets postponed. Day after day, year after year. Modern life didn't invent your fear of silence. Evolution did that. But modern life did something new. It made silence optional. Your great-grandparents had hours of quiet forced on them every day, whether they wanted it or not. Walking, farming, sitting in the dark after sunset. Their difficult thoughts had a scheduled appointment every single day. Yours don't. You are the first generation of humans in history who can go from birth to death without ever sitting in extended silence. Not because silence vanished, but because you can now bury it, cheaply and instantly, 24 hours a day. And there's a cost. Researchers studying the default mode network have found that it isn't just the source of anxious rumination. It's also where your brain consolidates memories, imagines the future, connects ideas that don't seem related, and builds your sense of who you are. Your best ideas don't come while you're consuming. They come in the shower, on a walk, right before sleep. The exact moments when the noise drops away. When you eliminate silence from your life, you're not just avoiding discomfort, you're deleting the workspace where your mind makes sense of your own existence. This is what silence is hiding from you. Not emptiness, not boredom. It's hiding the unprocessed backlog of your own life, and behind that backlog, the machinery that could actually deal with it. So what do you do with this? Not a silent retreat, not throwing your headphones away. Something much smaller. The research points to a strange conclusion. In Bernardi's study, 2 minutes was enough to change the body. In Kirsta's study, the effects came from short daily doses. Silence appears to work less like a marathon and more like a vitamin. Small amounts, taken regularly. So try an experiment on yourself. 1 trip in the car with the radio off. 1 meal without a screen. 10 minutes before sleep with nothing playing. The first attempt will feel bad. Expect that. Your ancient alarm will whisper that something is wrong, and your backlog will start talking. That discomfort isn't a sign that silence is broken. It's a sign that it's working. The itch you feel is the sound of your mind finally getting a chance to do its oldest job. And notice what happens on the 3rd day, the 5th, the 10th. People who deliberately practice small doses of quiet report the same arc. First, it's unbearable. Then it's tolerable. Then, strangely, it becomes the part of the day they protect most fiercely. The threat detector calms down once it learns, again and again, that no leopard comes. And what's left underneath the alarm is the thing Bernardi accidentally measured. A nervous system, finally off duty. 67% of men in that Virginia lab chose an electric shock over 15 minutes with their own mind. That number sounds absurd until you realize you make a smaller version of that choice every day. Every time you reach for your headphones, not because you want sound, but because you can't face its absence. The shock button is in your pocket right now. You press it dozens of times a day. You just call it something else. Right now, there is sound around you, but now you know what it's covering. And the next time it stops, even for a moment, you have a choice your ancestors never had. You can flinch and refill the noise, or you can sit inside that ancient, uncomfortable medicinal quiet and finally listen to the only voice that was ever trying to reach you.